Chiktar's claws shook as he pressed the communication button again. This was the 15th distress call. 15 times he had sent the same desperate message into space, hoping someone would answer, hoping someone would care. This is Kresh 4 mining colony. We have 340 trapped underground. Many injured. Cubs, among them. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. His voice cracked on the last words. Through the window of the communications hub, he could see the massive crack in the ground where the mine entrance used to be. 6 hours ago, the planet had shaken like an angry beast. The tunnels collapsed. Most of the colony workers were underground when it happened. Now they were sealed in the dark, deep below the surface. Chiktar was Velkin, an insectoid species that had mined this world for 20 cycles. His kind were good at digging, at finding valuable minerals in hard places, but they were not strong enough to move the thousands of tons of rock that now blocked the tunnels. They needed help. They needed rescue equipment. They needed someone to care. The communication panel finally lit up. Chiktar's hearts jumped with hope. Someone had answered. Kresh 4 Colony, this is Galactic Council Station 7. We have received your distress call. Stand by. Please hurry, Chiktar said. We don't have much time. The air supply down there will only last maybe 2 days. Understood. Stand by. The line went silent. Chiktar waited. Minutes turned into an hour. Then 2 hours. Finally, the communication panel lit up again. Far away, in the great chamber where the Galactic Council met, several species were talking about Kresh 4. Sarith, a tall reptilian delegate with cold yellow eyes, looked at the numbers on his data screen. The cost of rescue would be 4.2 million credits, he said, his voice emotionless. The economic value of the colony is only 1.7 million credits. The mathematics is very clear. We cannot justify this expense. A Torvian representative nodded, their feathered crest bobbing. My people's ships cannot handle that gravity anyway. Kresh 4 is a Class 4 death world. The gravity would crush our vessels. The atmosphere is toxic, added an elegant airlon, their crystal-like skin shimmering. Our biology is not compatible. We would need special equipment. We do not have. My corporation's insurance does not cover death world rescues, said the Dreshka delegate, a bear-like creature with gray fur. It is too expensive, too risky. Sarith looked around the chamber. Then, we are in agreement. The Kresh 4 situation is regrettable, but unavoidable. We will evacuate the surface personnel. The trapped miners are, unfortunately, lost. We cannot save them. The vote was quick. Only 2 species voted against the decision. The rest agreed. It was too expensive, too difficult, too dangerous. The trapped Velkin would die, and the galaxy would move on. Back on Kresh 4, Chiktar received the message. His legs nearly gave out from under him. He had to read it 3 times before he could accept what it said. Rescue deemed economically unfeasible. Evacuation of surface personnel authorized. Deep condolences for your losses. That was it. That was all. The galaxy had decided his people would die because saving them cost too much money. Chiktar walked slowly to where the other surface Velkin waited. They looked at him with hope in their multifaceted eyes. He couldn't speak. He just slowly moved his head side to side in the Velkin gesture of negative. One female, Peshka, made a clicking sound of distress. No one? No one will come? No one, Chiktar whispered. They had a small communication line to the trapped miners, a thin cable that went down through a crack in the rocks. He had to tell the trapped that no one was coming to save them. The hardest part was listening to the parents say goodbye to their cubs. The young ones didn't understand. They asked when they would see the sky again, when they would come home. The parents lied and said soon, very soon, even as they clicked in sorrow. Old Breshka was down there, a respected elder. His voice came through the speaker, calm and steady. We knew this was possible. Chiktar. We work dangerous jobs in dangerous places. Tell our story. Let the galaxy know we called for help, and no one came. I will, Chiktar promised. As the hours passed, the oxygen levels underground dropped. The trapped Velkin grew quiet, saving their strength. The cubs stopped asking questions. They huddled close to the adults, mandibles clicking softly in fear. Chiktar sat at his communication panel, knowing it was useless but unable to leave. He sent one more message. Not to the council. Not to any specific species. Just out into the void of space. To anyone listening, this is Chiktar of Kresh 4. 340 of my people are trapped underground with failing air. We asked for help. The galaxy said no. They said it costs too much. They said the risk is too high. They said we are not worth saving. I don't know if anyone out there believes differently. I don't know if anyone cares. But if someone does, if anyone has the courage the council lacks, we are here. He ended the transmission and put his head in his claws. It was over. In another day, maybe less, his people would run out of air. They would die in the dark, alone, abandoned by the civilization they had served for generations. Then something on his sensor screen changed. Chiktar lifted his head, mandibles clicking in confusion. There were new contacts appearing. Ships. Coming fast. Very fast. Impossible, he whispered. The council said no one was coming. He watched as 6 signatures appeared, burning through the atmosphere like falling stars. They were coming straight for the colony. Coming fast enough that their hulls glowed from the heat. Chiktar's communication panel suddenly crackled to life with a new voice. A voice speaking in heavily accented galactic common, with strange sounds he'd never heard before. Kresh 4 colony, this is the human vessel Incheon's Hammer. We picked up your distress call. We're here to get your people out. Where do you need us? Where do you need us? Chiktar stared at the panel. Humans? He had heard of them. A new species, barely part of the galactic community. From some death world far away. They had no reason to be here. No reason to care. Who? His voice broke. He tried again. Who are you? Why are you here? The response was simple, direct, and said with absolute certainty. We're humans. You called for help. That's all the reason we need. Now let's go save your people. For the first time in 6 hours, Chiktar felt something he thought was gone forever. Hope. The 6 human ships came down through the toxic atmosphere like they were racing each other. Chiktar watched them land near the collapsed mine entrance, their engines throwing up clouds of the yellow dust that covered everything on Kresh 4. The largest ship touched down first, metal groaning as it settled under the crushing gravity. A ramp extended from the side of the lead vessel. The first human to emerge was wearing a thick suit that looked like it could survive anything. The helmet retracted, and Chiktar saw his first human face. She was female, with dark hair pulled back tight, and eyes that looked like they had seen difficult things, but refused to quit. I'm Commander Park Minju, she said, walking toward Chiktar. She moved well in the high gravity. Better than most species could. Show me where they're trapped. Chiktar led her to the collapsed entrance. What had been a wide tunnel was now just a wall of broken rock and twisted metal. Minju studied it carefully, her eyes moving across every detail. Behind her, more humans were already unloading equipment from their ships. How deep? She asked. 300 meters, Chiktar said. Maybe deeper. The seismic activity shifted everything. We can't be certain. A human male approached, older than Minju, with scars on his hands that spoke of long years of hard work. I'm Chief Engineer, Lee Sung-ho, he said. Let me see the geological scans. Chiktar brought up the data on a portable screen. Lee studied it, making small sounds that Chiktar couldn't interpret. Finally, the engineer looked up. The gravity's murder and the air will melt your lungs, Lee said with what sounded almost like humor. So, Basically, Tuesday. For us. Chiktar didn't understand the reference, but he understood the meaning. These humans came from a world like this. A death world. They were built for this. Another human joined them, a woman carrying medical equipment. "I'm Dr. Kim Hana," she said. "How many injured down there?" "We don't know exactly," Chiktar admitted. "At least 50. Maybe more. The communication line is very thin. Only voices can get through." Kim nodded and immediately began setting up a medical station. Chiktar watched in amazement as she unpacked equipment that looked designed for exactly this kind of situation. Heavy, durable, meant to work in terrible conditions. A shorter human approached, male, with a face that looked kind but determined. "Sergeant Kang Ji-woo. Rescue coordination," he said. "Do you have the communication line to the trapped?" "Yes. This way." Chiktar led him to the small shelter, where the thin cable disappeared into the rocks. Kang picked up the speaker. "Trapped miners, this is Sergeant Kang of the Human Rescue Team. Can you hear me?" There was a moment of silence. Then old Breshka's voice came through. Weak, but steady. "We hear you, human. But the council said no one was coming." "The council doesn't speak for us," Kang said firmly. "We're here now. We're going to dig you out. It's going to take time, but we're not leaving without you. All of you. Understand?" Another voice came through, younger, clicking with emotion. "You really came? For us?" "We really came," Kang confirmed. "Now listen carefully. We're going to drill down an air supply line first. Get you fresh oxygen. Then, we start the real digging. Stay calm, conserve your energy, and trust us. We've done this before." Chiktar felt his legs tremble. They had done this before. These humans rescued people from collapsed mines on death worlds, as a normal thing. Commander Minju gathered her team around a portable display, showing the geological data. Chiktar listened as they planned. 3 approach tunnels, Minju said. "We reinforce as we go with the nanocarbon mesh. Team 1 goes straight down. Fastest route, but most unstable. Team 2 comes in from the east side, slower but safer. Team 3 is our backup if either collapses. The aftershocks are still coming every few hours," Lee warned. "We could lose a tunnel anytime. Then we work fast and careful," Minju said. "Any questions?" No one spoke. These humans knew what to do. They had equipment, training, and most importantly, they had the will to do it. A new ship arrived, larger than the human vessels. It was Torvian, with diplomatic markings. A tall Torvian observer emerged, his feathered crest bright yellow against the dull landscape. "I am Observer Kreshik," he announced. "I am here to document this tragedy. For the council records." Minju looked at him with an expression Chiktar was learning to read as irritation. "You're here to watch people die?" "The council determined rescue was impossible," Kreshik said stiffly. "Then witness this," Minju said, turning back to her team. "Deploy the drilling rig. Let's get those people some air." The humans moved with impressive efficiency. Within 30 minutes, they had a drilling rig positioned and working. The drill bit into the rock. The sound loud even through the toxic atmosphere. Chiktar watched the depth meter climb. 50 meters. 100. 150. "Be careful," he warned. "The rock is very unstable. Everything worth doing is dangerous," Lee said, monitoring the drill's progress. "That's what makes it worth doing." At 280 meters, the drill broke through into open space. The humans quickly attached an air supply line and fed it down the hole. Through the communication speaker, they heard the trapped Velkin clicking in relief as fresh oxygen began flowing. "Air supply established," Kang reported. "That buys us time." "How much time?" Chiktar asked. "As much as we need," Minju said. "Now comes the hard part." The humans split into 3 teams. Each team had digging equipment, support structures, and more courage than Chiktar had seen from any species in his long life. They began cutting into the collapsed mine from 3 different angles. Team 1 was led by a young human named Private Yoon Se-jin. He had the calm confidence of someone who had worked underground before. Chiktar learned he had been a coal miner on Earth before joining the rescue service. Team 2 worked the east approach, led by a woman named Corporal Im Soo-jin. She sang while she worked, strange human songs that somehow made the work go faster. Team 3, the backup, was managed by Engineer Lee himself. He constantly monitored the stability, ready to shift resources wherever they were needed most. Observer Kreshik watched all of this with growing confusion. Finally, he approached Commander Min Ju. "I must ask," he said, "why are you doing this? These are not your people. You don't even know them. The risk is enormous, and you receive no payment. Your ships could be damaged. Your people could be hurt. Why?" Minju stopped what she was doing and looked directly at the Torvian. "You really don't understand?" "No," Kreshik admitted. "I do not." "They called for help," Minju said slowly, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "They need help, and we can give it. That's what people do. Or, what they should do. But the cost. What's the cost of doing nothing?" Minju interrupted. "What's the cost of being the kind of person who can hear someone dying and just walk away because it's expensive? We can't live with that cost. So, we're here." Kreshik had no response to that. Down below, through the communication line, the trapped Velkin were hearing all of this. Old Breshka's voice came through one more time. "Human Commander Minju, I have a question." "Go ahead," Minju said. "The Council abandoned us. They are the civilization we have served for generations. You are strangers, new to the galaxy. Why do you care more than they do?" "Whoa." Minju was quiet for a moment. Then she answered, "Maybe we're too new to know that credits matter more than lives. Maybe coming from a death world taught us different lessons. Or maybe we just remember what it's like to be the ones who need help. Whatever the reason, we're here." A massive aftershock suddenly hit. The ground shook hard enough to knock Chiktar off his feet. Alarms blared from all 3 tunnel teams. Our piece. Team 1's tunnel was collapsing. Private Yoon Se-jin heard the rumble before he felt it. Years working in Earth's deep coal mines had taught him to recognize that sound. The mountain was moving. "Back! Everyone back!" he shouted into his comm. His team scrambled backward through the tunnel they'd been digging for the past 4 hours. The support beams groaned. Dust and small rocks began falling from the ceiling. Then, larger rocks. Then everything came down. Yoon threw himself behind a support beam as tons of stone crashed down where he'd been standing seconds before. The tunnel, filled with dust so thick he couldn't see his hand in front of his helmet. His heart pounded as he waited for the shaking to stop. "Team 1, report." Commander Minju's voice came through the comm, sharp with concern. "We're okay," Yoon said, coughing. "But the tunnel's gone. Completely collapsed. We lost about 40 meters of progress. Pull back and regroup," Minju ordered. "Team 2, status?" "We're stable," Corporal Im Soo-jin reported. "The east tunnel held, still digging." "Team 3? Also stable," Engineer Lee confirmed. "But I'm seeing stress fractures forming in the rock layers around Team 2's position. They need to reinforce more before going deeper." Chiktar watched from the surface as the human teams emerged from the tunnels. They were covered in dust, some limping, but none were quitting. Yoon's team immediately began preparing to start a new approach tunnel. "You're going back in?" Chiktar asked, amazed. "After that collapse?" "Of course," Yoon said, checking his equipment. "Those people are still down there. The job's not done." Dr. Kim had set up her medical station in one of the human ships. She was treating minor injuries when the first rescued Velkin came up. Team 2 had broken through to a small side chamber where 15 Velkin had been trapped. These were the lucky ones. In a pocket with good airflow, the Velkin emerged blinking in the dim light, their legs shaking with exhaustion and fear. Kim immediately began checking them over, her scanner adapted to read Velkin biology. "You're going to be okay," she said gently to an older Velkin male whose leg was clearly broken. "This is going to hurt. But I need to set this." She worked with surprising gentleness for someone wearing heavy gloves. Chiktar watched as she adapted human medical techniques to Velkin physiology. When normal medicines wouldn't work, she improvised. She used a welding torch at low setting to cauterize a bleeding wound when Velkin blood wouldn't clot with human coagulants. "Forgive me if I'm doing this wrong," Kim said as she worked. "I studied your species biology on the way here, but I've never actually treated a Velkin before." "You're saving my life," the injured Velkin said. "You're doing it perfectly. You're..." Among the rescued was a young cub named Tikrik. She was small, her chitin still soft with youth, and she was terrified. She clung to Sergeant Kang when he carried her out, her small claws gripping his suit. "It's okay," Kang said softly. "You're safe now. See? Fresh air. Open sky. You're going to be fine. You came for us." Tikrik clicked, her voice high and scared. "The big one said no one would come. But you came." "We came," Kang confirmed. "And we're getting everyone else out too, including your parents." "Where are they?" Kang. "Deeper," Tikrik said. "In the main chamber with the others." Kang looked at the tunnel entrance. The main chamber was still 200 meters of solid rock away, but he smiled at the young cub. "Then, that's where we're going next." Team 2 continued making progress through the east tunnel. Corporal Im was a natural leader, keeping her team focused and safe. She'd been a rescue worker in Seoul before joining the space program. She'd pulled people from collapsed buildings after earthquakes. This was harder, but the principle was the same. "Support beam here," she directed. "And another one there. We're not taking chances." They advanced meter by meter. The work was slow, careful, exhausting. The gravity made every movement harder. The toxic atmosphere meant they couldn't take off their suits even for a moment. But they didn't stop. Above ground, Observer Kreshik was sending regular reports back to the Council. His messages grew increasingly confused as he watched the humans work. These beings operated in conditions that would kill most species. They worked through exhaustion and danger. And they did it for strangers. "They just saved 15 Velkin," he reported. "The humans are celebrating like they won a battle. They're going back in immediately to get the others. Commander Minju says they won't stop until everyone is out. I don't understand them." Late into the night cycle, Team 2 broke through to another chamber. This one was larger. 60 Velkin were inside, including many cubs. The oxygen was dangerously low. Some of the Velkin were barely conscious. "Medical team, now," Im called. "We need respirators and stretchers." Dr. Kim and her assistants rushed down the tunnel. They brought portable oxygen units and started treating the most critical cases right there in the chamber. Some Velkin were too weak to walk. The humans carried them out, one by one, through the narrow tunnel. It was brutal work. The humans were getting exhausted. Chiktar could see it in their movements, hear it in their breathing. But when he suggested they rest, Commander Minju shook her head. "We rest when everyone's out," she said firmly. "Not before." The breakthrough came 18 hours into the rescue. Team 3, working a different angle, suddenly broke through into the main chamber. The largest group of trapped Velkin was there, 180 individuals, including 47 cubs. This was where Tikrik's parents were. Old Breshka was in that chamber too. He was helping keep the cubs calm, telling them stories to distract them from their fear. When the human drill bit broke through the wall, he clicked in relief. "I knew you would come," he said to the first human face he saw. "I didn't believe it was possible, but I knew you would come." End quote. The evacuation of the main chamber was complicated. The tunnel Team 3 had made was narrow and unstable. They could only move a few Velkin at a time. Engineer Lee studied the geology scans and made a decision. We need to widen this tunnel, he said. But if we do, we risk another collapse. The support structure has to be perfect. How long? Minju asked. 4 hours to do it safely. The oxygen in that chamber won't last 4 hours. Lee looked at the numbers again. Then we do it in 2 hours and accept the risk. They widened the tunnel, working faster than was safe, installing supports as quickly as possible. Twice, human workers dove to stabilize the supports, risking their own lives to keep the tunnel open. Specialist Han Jun was positioning a support beam when a section of ceiling gave way. Tons of rock came down directly on him. His team saw him disappear under the debris. Han! Someone shouted. They dug frantically. Every second mattered. They found him buried under rocks that would have killed most beings. His suit had held, but he wasn't moving. Get him out, Im ordered. Carefully, they pulled him free. Dr. Kim ran up as they carried him out. She checked his vital signs while he was still covered in dust. Broken ribs, she said. Han opened his eyes. The tunnel? Stable, Im told him. Because of you. Good, Han said, then passed out. By the 20th hour, they were evacuating the last Velkin from the main chamber. The cubs came out first, carried by humans who were gentle despite their exhaustion. Tikrik's parents emerged, and she ran to them, clicking in joy. The reunion made every human who saw it smile despite their tiredness, but they weren't done yet. There were still 40 Velkin trapped in the deepest section, an area that had been completely sealed off by the initial collapse. This would be the hardest rescue of all. We're running out of time, Lee warned. The geological stress is building. This whole area could collapse completely in the next few hours. Then we work faster, Minju said. Commander, Lee said carefully. If we send people down there, and it collapses, we'll lose them too. Minju looked at her engineer. Are you saying we should abandon those 40? I'm saying it's dangerous. Everything we've done has been dangerous, Minju said. We knew that when we came. We're not stopping now. She called for volunteers to make the final rescue attempt. Every single human raised their hand. The final 40 Velkin came out 28 hours after the humans arrived. Corporal Im Soo-jin led the last team down, and she was the last one to emerge. The tunnel collapsed completely 5 minutes after she made it to the surface. The timing was terrifyingly close. All 340 Velkin were safe. Alive. The humans had done what the council said was impossible. Commander Park Min-ju stood in the dusty camp, watching her exhausted team. 3 humans were in the medical bay with injuries. Another dozen had minor wounds. Their equipment was damaged. Their ships needed repairs. It had cost them so much, and they were celebrating like they'd won the greatest victory in history. Chiktar approached Min-ju, his legs unsteady with emotion. You saved everyone. Every single one of us. I don't have words for what this means. Min-ju smiled, tired but genuine. You don't need words. Just live. That's thanks enough. But your equipment, your injured people, the cost, was worth it, Min-ju interrupted. Every credit, every risk, every moment. Because everyone is alive. Observer Kreshik was finishing his report to the council. His message was very different from what he expected to write. He didn't document a tragedy. He documented a miracle. And he documented his own shame. 3 days later, Commander Park Min-ju received a formal summons from the Galactic Council. She was to appear before them immediately to answer questions about the Kresh 4 rescue. The message was carefully worded, but the threat was clear. The humans had violated council protocols. Min-ju arrived at council station wearing her dress uniform. She walked into the great chamber with her head high. Around the curved walls sat representatives from 47 species. Most looked uncomfortable. Some looked angry. Sareth, the reptilian delegate who had voted against the rescue, spoke first. Commander Park Min-ju, you are here to answer for your actions at Creche 4. You violated established protocols. You entered a designated loss zone without authorization. You conducted a rescue operation after the Council determined such action was economically unfeasible. I did, Min-ju agreed. You acted without Council approval. I did. You understand you've broken numerous regulations? I understand you have regulations that say it's okay to let children die because the math doesn't work in your favor. Min-ju said calmly. Yes, I understand. The chamber erupted in angry clicking, growling, and other sounds of displeasure. Sareth raised his hand for silence. You cannot simply do whatever you wish, he said coldly. There are reasons for these protocols. Resources are limited. Risks must be calculated. Not every situation can be resolved with brute force and emotional thinking. You're right, Min-ju said. Not every situation can be resolved that way. But Creche 4 could. And it was. 340 beings are alive, because we tried. How many would be alive if we followed your protocols? That is not the point. That's exactly the point, Min-ju interrupted. You wrote off 340 lives, including 87 children, because the cost was too high. You made a mathematical decision about who deserves to live and who doesn't. A Dreshka delegate stood. You speak as if resources are infinite. They are not. We must make difficult choices. Then make them, Min-ju said. But don't pretend your choices are anything other than what they are. You chose credits over lives. We chose differently. Sareth brought up a display showing the cost of the human rescue operation. You spent 6.3 million credits on this operation. You lost valuable equipment. 3 of your people were injured. For a colony that was, economically speaking, already a loss. This is not rational. You keep using that word, Min-ju said. Rational. Economic. Mathematical. As if the only things that matter are things you can count on a balance sheet. We come from a world that tried that approach for a long time. We learned it doesn't work. Because the most important things can't be measured in credits. Sentiment, Sareth dismissed. Emotion. These are not bases for policy. Neither is cruelty, Min-ju replied. But that's what your policy is. Calculated, rational, cruelty. The chamber doors opened. Chiktar entered, followed by a full delegation of Velkin. Behind them came the cubs, including young Tikrik. Old Breshka was there too, walking slowly but with dignity. We were not summoned, Chiktar said clearly. But we came anyway. Because we have something to say. Sareth looked irritated. This is not proper procedure. Neither is abandoning people to die, Chiktar interrupted. But you did it anyway. You voted to let us suffocate in the dark. You said our lives weren't worth the cost of saving them. You, who we have served for 300 cycles. You, who took our resources and our labor. You, who claimed to represent civilization. He gestured to Min-ju. This human, this stranger from a species we barely knew existed, came when you would not. These humans risked their lives, spent their resources, worked until they could barely stand. For us. For strangers. And you want to punish them for it? Old Breshka stepped forward. I am 340 cycles old. I have seen much in my long life. I believed the Council represented the best of civilization. I was wrong. He looked directly at Sareth. These humans, newcomers to the galaxy, primitives from a death world, showed us what civilization truly means. It means helping those who need help. It means caring for strangers. It means not everything has a price tag. Young Tikrik moved to stand beside Commander Min-ju. The tiny cub looked up at the Council with her many eyes. I'm 7 cycles old, she said, her voice high but clear. I don't understand economics or protocols. But I understand that I called for help, and no one came. Except the humans. They came. They saved me and my parents and everyone. Why are you angry at them for that? Ah, the simple question hung in the air. No one had an immediate answer. A young Airlon delegate named Thressis suddenly stood. Her crystal skin was flushed dark with emotion. I voted against the rescue, she said, her voice shaking. I looked at the numbers and agreed it wasn't economically justified. I watched the footage of the rescue. I watched humans work until they collapsed. I watched them carry cubs out gently, even though they were exhausted. I watched them celebrate when everyone was safe, like it was the greatest moment of their lives. She paused. I am ashamed. Deeply, permanently ashamed. Other delegates shifted uncomfortably. Thressis continued. We tell ourselves we're rational, that we make hard choices that emotional beings can't make. But what if we're just making excuses? What if we've built a civilization that can calculate the price of everything, but understand the value of nothing? That's enough. Sareth snapped. This is becoming emotional theater. Everything important is emotional. Thressis shot back. Love is emotional. Courage is emotional. Compassion is emotional. And yes, shame is emotional. I feel all of these things right now. Especially shame. The Torvian observer Kreshik stood. I watched the entire rescue. I was sent to document a tragedy. Instead, I documented something I have never seen before. I documented beings who would risk everything for strangers. Not for profit, not for politics, just because it was right. He looked around the chamber. We have forgotten what that means. If we ever knew. The debate continued for hours. Species argued back and forth. Some defended the Council's decision as necessary pragmatism. Others questioned what kind of civilization they had built. Finally, Sareth called for order. The Council must vote on sanctions against humanity for these violations. The vote was close. In the end, the Council decided on a formal warning. Humanity was told not to interfere in Council decisions again. They were told to respect protocols and procedures. They were told their emotional approach to problems was not appropriate for galactic civilization. Commander Minju stood to receive the judgment. We hear your warning. We understand your position, but understand ours. We will not stop helping people who need help. We will not calculate whether someone deserves to be saved. We will not let children die because the economics don't work. If that means we don't fit in your civilization, then maybe your civilization needs to change. She turned and walked out, the Velkin delegation following her. 3 months later, another distress call went out. A Torvian colony was in crisis. Reactor meltdown. Evacuation impossible. The Council gathered to debate. They debated for 6 hours. Talked about costs and risks and protocols. Argued about what was feasible and what was not. While they debated, a human rescue fleet was already moving. They had intercepted the distress call. They were coming. The thunder was spreading across the stars. Begzar Station was dying. The fusion reactor that powered the Torvian colony had developed a critical fault. Radiation was leaking into the habitat sections. 3,000 Torvians were trapped with no way to evacuate. Their ships couldn't handle the radiation levels needed to approach the failing reactor. The distress call reached the Galactic Council. Governor Krexith of Bexar Station waited for their response with fading hope. He had been one of the delegates who voted against the Kresh 4 rescue. He remembered arguing that it was too expensive, too risky. Now he was the one waiting for help. The council debated. The discussion was familiar. Cost analysis, risk assessment, feasibility studies. The math didn't look good. Saving Bexar Station would be extremely expensive. The radiation levels made it incredibly dangerous. Then something unexpected happened. A new voice joined the council channel. This is Chiktar of the Velkin Collective. We have ships en route to Bexar Station. We will attempt to assist. Sareth clicked in surprise. The Velkin? You don't have the technology for radiation work. You don't have death world biology. This is beyond your capabilities. Perhaps, Chiktar agreed. But we must try. The humans taught us that much. The Velkin weren't alone. A small Airlon medical ship launched, led by Thresis. Even a few Dreshka volunteers joined, their mining equipment modified for rescue work. They arrived at Bexar Station within hours. Governor Krexith watched the approaching ships with mixed feelings. Hope, because someone had come. Doubt, because these species weren't equipped for this kind of crisis. Shame, because he remembered voting to abandon these very beings when they needed help. The Velkin ship docked first. Chiktar emerged in a radiation suit that looked makeshift and inadequate. He approached the reactor problem with determination, but quickly realized the truth. They weren't ready for this. Their equipment wasn't strong enough. Their biology couldn't handle the radiation levels. They were trying, but they were failing. Thresis and her Airlon team set up a medical station, but struggled to help the radiation-sick Torvians. Their medicine wasn't designed for this. Their training didn't cover it. They were doing their best, but their best wasn't enough. The Dreshka volunteers tried to shore up the failing radiation shields around the reactor. Their mining expertise helped, but the reactor was deteriorating faster than they could work. They were brave, but bravery alone couldn't solve this. Krexith watched these species struggle and sacrifice for his people. Species he had dismissed. Species he had voted to abandon. Now they were here, risking their lives, even though they couldn't succeed. Why? He asked Chiktar. Why come when you know you cannot save us? Because you called for help, Chiktar said simply. Because the humans showed us that trying matters. Even if we fail, at least we tried. At least we cared. At least we came. Then new signatures appeared on the sensors. 6 human ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The lead vessel was familiar. The Incheon's hammer. Commander Park Min-ju had come again. The human ships approached Bexar Station. Min-ju's voice came over the communication channel. Heard you folks could use some help. 5. Krexith felt tears in his eyes. You came. After I voted against helping your friends. After I said your people were too emotional. Too reckless. You still came. 1. That's what we do, Min-ju said. Now let's save your people. We don't have much time, but this time was different. The humans didn't work alone. Commander Min-ju coordinated with Chiktar, with Thresis, with the Dreshka volunteers. They combined their efforts. Chief Engineer Lee Sung-ho gathered the Dreshka workers. Your mining knowledge is exactly what we need. You understand how to work in dangerous conditions with heavy equipment. Work with my team. We'll combine human radiation shielding with your structural expertise. Dr. Kim Hana brought Thresis into the medical bay. Your species processes certain chemicals differently than we do. That could be useful. Let's share our medical databases. Maybe together we can find treatments that work better. The Velkin, with their smaller size, could access maintenance tunnels that humans couldn't easily reach. Chiktar's people went into those narrow spaces with human-provided radiation protection, carrying repair equipment to fix damaged systems. It was messy. It was improvised. But it was working. Private Yoon Se-jin worked alongside a Dreshka named Kroshak, manually installing radiation panels while the reactor pulsed with dangerous energy. They communicated through translators, but the work created its own language. When a panel slipped, Kroshak caught it. When Kroshak's equipment failed, Yoon shared his. In the medical bay, Dr. Kim and Thresis developed a hybrid treatment protocol, Airlon medicine combined with human technique. They saved Torvians, who would have died with either approach alone. Young Tikrik was there too. The Velkin cub had insisted on coming. To help. Like the humans had helped her. She was too small for the dangerous work, but she moved through the station bringing water and supplies to the exhausted rescue workers. Her presence reminded everyone why they were there. The work took 18 brutal hours. The reactor was stabilized, the radiation was contained, all 3,000 Torvians were saved. In the aftermath, Governor Krexith stood before the assembled rescue workers. Humans, Velkin, Erlon, Dreshka. Species that 3 months ago would never have worked together like this. I don't deserve this, Krexith said quietly. I voted to let your people die, Chiktar. I called the humans reckless. I said emotion had no place in policy. I was wrong. Completely, terribly wrong. Chiktar approached him. The humans taught me something. It's not about deserving. It's about being people. People help people. Or they should. Commander Minju smiled. Chiktar's a good student. Better than me. I might have held a grudge. You came anyway, Krexith said. Why? Because you needed help, Minju said. And because if I didn't come, I'd be the same as the council that abandoned the Velkin. I'd be someone who lets people die because I'm angry, or because the math is wrong, or because of 1,000 other excuses. I don't want to be that person. Back at the council station, everything was changing. The successful rescue of Begzar Station had been watched by the entire galaxy. The images of different species working together, of humans teaching others their methods, of successful rescue where the council had predicted only death. A proposal reached the council floor. The Humanitarian Response Coalition, a volunteer rescue force that any species could join. Humans would provide initial training and equipment, but it would be open to all. The debate was intense. Sarith argued against it. This is chaos. This is emotion over logic. This is abandoning centuries of careful economic planning, but his voice was becoming isolated. More and more species were questioning the old ways. Thresis spoke for the proposal. We've built a civilization that's very good at calculating costs. But we forgot to calculate the cost of our own souls, the cost of being the people who can hear someone dying and just walk away. That cost is too high. I won't pay it anymore. Even some Torvian delegates, including observers from Bexar Station, spoke in favor. These humans risked their lives for us after we abandoned their allies. They taught other species to do the same. If that's reckless emotion, then logic has failed us. The vote came. It wasn't unanimous, but it passed. The Humanitarian Response Coalition was approved. 1 year later, the coalition had conducted 17 rescue operations. Humans still led many missions, but they weren't alone anymore. Velkin rescue workers served alongside humans. Erlon medical teams deployed to crisis zones. Dreshka engineers shared their expertise. Even a few Torvian ships had joined. On Kresh 4, the recovered colony held a ceremony. A monument was being unveiled in the central plaza. It showed figures representing different species working together. Human and Velkin, side by side. The inscription was in multiple languages. When everyone walked away, some ran forward. Commander Park Minju attended the ceremony. She was older now, with more gray in her hair. She trained the next generation of rescue workers, teaching humans and aliens alike. Young Tikrik wasn't so young anymore. She stood beside the monument, now a trainee in the rescue service herself. She wore a uniform that combined Velkin design with human practicality. A group of human students approached, fresh recruits learning the rescue trade. One asked Minju the question everyone always asked. Commander, why did you go to Kresh 4? The council said, no. Your own government hadn't authorized it. Why risk everything? Close. Minju looked at the monument, at Tikrik, at the mixed species crowd gathered to honor those who came when no one else would. Because someone called for help? She said simply. Because everyone else said it was too hard, too expensive, too impossible. Because if we didn't go, who would? And if not, then when? She smiled. The galaxy said certain things were impossible. They were wrong. They just needed to learn what humans have always known. What's that? The young student asked. That the only impossible rescue is the one you don't attempt? Minju said. That people matter more than math. That courage is more valuable than credits. That helping someone who needs it isn't reckless emotion. It's the most rational thing in the universe. Her communication device chirped. A distress call from the Kepler sector. Station failure. 2,000 beings at risk. The council was debating. Minju looked at her team. Humans, Velkin, Erlon, even a few Torvians and Dreshka. A rainbow of species, united by a simple idea. Help those who need it. Well, she said. You ready? They were ready. They were always ready. The ships launched together. A fleet of different designs and different species. But one purpose. Racing towards someone who needed help. Not because it was profitable. Not because it was easy. Not because someone authorized it. Because that's what people do. The thunder that had descended on Kresh 4 had spread across the galaxy. It echoed in rescue operations on 100 worlds. It rang out in the voices of species who'd learned that compassion wasn't weakness. It rolled like a storm through the halls of power, challenging old certainties. They had thought no one would come. They had been right about the galaxy as it was, but the galaxy was changing. Humanity had arrived, and humanity had brought something the galaxy had forgotten. The thunder of compassion moving at the speed of light. The thunder of stubbornness that refused to accept death as inevitable. The thunder of simple truth. You called for help, and help is coming. From Earth to Kresh 4, from Bexar Station to 1,000 crisis zones across the stars, the thunder rolled, and wherever it went, it left the same message carved into monuments. Written in the hearts of the saved. Taught to every new generation. When everyone says no, someone must say yes. When everyone walks away, someone must run forward. When everyone gives up, someone must try harder. That someone was humanity. And humanity taught others to be that someone too. The galaxy would never be the same.